Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. Yep, it's time for another midweek mini mail call. I'm pretty sure this is going to be number 29, which again, totally baffles my mind that I've made so many mail call videos. But don't worry, there are a lot more to come. If you recall from last week's video, I was by the Christmas tree and there were a bunch of packages under there from viewers, and I haven't opened those up yet. So as I open those up, there'll be plenty more to come. Not to mention, like I mentioned last week, there are things that I have opened already, but not shown on mail call videos because they are things I want to focus on primary Saturday videos. So watch for those. If you have sent stuff in, you haven't seen me open it, those will be coming up in the future. I just can't make any promises of when due to the way timelines work with the channel and stuff like December. It takes me on a little bit of a tangent for a while off of the normal videos I was already working on. Anyhow, without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, so we have a package here from Ottawa, Ontario. It looks to be an air mattress. I've always wanted one. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. Ottawa, Ontario is the capital city of Canada. It's a stunningly beautiful city. So if you ever have a chance to go visit there, I highly recommend it. There is no name on here, so maybe there's a note inside, so I'll know who this comes from. Let's crack this open. Ah, yes, okay, there is a note inside. It looks like we have some more candy. All right, let's take a look at the note here. It says, "Hi Adrian, I hope this survives shipping." Absolutely, it looks like it did. Some backstory, this Atari 2600, which is absolutely what this is, was given to me a while back, and I had a buddy mod it for AV. Unfortunately, the mod stopped working, and I have not gotten around to having it fixed. Since I now have an Atari 7800 and a Retron 77, it's been collecting dust. I thought it'd be great to send it to you with some of my duplicate Atari games. Here they are, right here. Sorry I lost the power adapter. I hope you find a use for these things. Keep up the awesome work. P.S. I hope you don't mind. I included some self-promotion and candy. Well, the candy is right here. It looks like some Smarties, and that's his business card right here at the new Retro Show. I actually don't know his name because it's not on the letter or the packaging or this card. So hello to my fellow YouTuber on the new Retro Show. So let's just quickly check out this candy, which is in an anti-static bag for its ESD protection. Oh, look, he has sent a whole bunch of Smarties, Canadian Smarties. These look like the little Halloween fun size packages of the Smarties. Oh, okay, I just dumped them out. And I really do like these. They bring back so many memories. I think by the time you see this video, you will have seen another mail call video that's had some Smarties sent in by a different Canadian out of Montreal, and I talked about how much I love them. So I won't go into too much of that again, because you've already heard it before. But I do really like the Canadian versions of the Smarties. I feel that they are more tasty than the UK ones, which I know is where they originated out of, but for some reason, they're just slightly different, and I guess it's nostalgia, so these really hit the spot for me. And even though Canada is just a few hours drive from where I live, you can't buy these here. And speaking of different things in Canada, I have to say, Canadians have a selection of potato chips, or crisps as they're called in the UK, that you just can't get in the US. And my favorite is ketchup. Yes, ketchup flavored potato chips. I absolutely love them. And the other one is dill pickle. So good. Can't get those here either. It's just one of those weird idiosyncrasies of the differences between Canada and the US. They're very similar countries in a lot of ways with the foods and the products we can buy. But one of the differences is you can't get ketchup potato chips in the US. And meanwhile, they're everywhere in Canada, super ubiquitous. Anyhow, let's take a look at this Atari 2600 and these games on the bench. So an Atari 2600 from the new Retro Show. So this is, I think, what I understand as a light sixer. So it's one of the earlier models, but it's not the heavy sixer as it's called. I think that has a thicker edge trim here, kind of flat, kind of sticks out further. As far as I'm aware, I'm really not super familiar with these Atari models. On the back here, it's a model CX 2600 and it's made in Taiwan. says Sunnyvale on there. The sticker is barely holding on. And it has the usual 2 joystick ports, joystick / paddle, power input. And originally this had a fixed cable, it was RF output. That's gone, it came out right here. And 3 RCA jacks are in its place, and that's the composite mod that was added to this. These are the games that came along with it. We have Freeway, Yar's Revenge, which is a great game, Jungle Hunt, and Combat. One of the feet is missing on the bottom of this. Definitely kind of annoying, makes a loud clunky noise. Now I don't have the power supply for this thing. It looks like it uses a 3.5 millimeter power input of some kind. So I'm just gonna crack this thing open, take a look at the mod that was done to it, see maybe if there's a problem with it, which is why this might not be working, and power the board up directly from my bench power supply. As I had mentioned before, it was about maybe 10, 15 years ago that I very briefly owned one of these Ataris. I never actually had one in person. I had friends who had them, but like I had my VIC-20 early on, 1982, and I played my games on that thing. I didn't have a game console. The NES was actually my very first game console that I ever owned. And even the NES I got that late, maybe in 1987 or so, 87 or 88. I mean late as in it had already been out for a few years. Super Mario Brothers was my first game. I did end up having Super Mario Brothers 2 and 3, and I don't remember, a handful of other games too. I don't have that original console anymore, unfortunately. All right, I think I've got enough screws out to get this thing apart. Okay, so there's the top cover. It's gonna be hard to see. Oh, there you go. There are 2 round holes in this grill, and I wonder if this was originally gonna have some speakers that they never installed in it. Or, I mean, I know that could be just for ventilation, but why have round holes for that? I'm trying to, there you go. There's one there. There's one over here. Why do round holes? That's unusual. All right, well, there's the inside of this 2600, and look at that, July 26, 1978. So I guess this is one of the earlier type models. Is this the mod? It's just sort of sitting there. Oops, screws are still falling out. It's weird how it just sits there, but let's pull this out of here. All right, so there are the RCA jacks. Well, like they're installed relatively well. And whoever did this mod, they installed a zip tie there to the little composite mod, which I guess looks like it's just a transistor and a couple of resistors. So I assume it's just very simple amplification. This right here is the RF modulator, and there's the RF output. It actually has an RCA jack. It's just on the inside. It's not exposed to the back of the case. So there was a cable that plugged in here, looped around, and went out the back of the case. So it was fixed when the case was together, but the reality is you could unplug that. I'm quite amazed by this very thick RF can that the main motherboard is in. This thing here is just simply for the switches and stuff like that in the RF modulator, but the reality is all the guts of this thing are inside this thick metal case here. Amazing. So right here is the power input. It's the underside of the board. So I'm just going to take a quick look online to find out what the original power supply was for this thing, AC or DC, and then I'll feed power straight into there. Yep, it looks like it's 9 volt DC is what this thing wants. So I'm just going to feed 9 volts DC into the Atari. Okay, I have the multimeter out because I need to figure out which is ground. Now this RF shield is going to be ground, and I bet you this pin right here, yep, that's the ground pin. So I'm going to feed ground into this pin closest to the edge of the motherboard, and these 2 pins are common, and that's going to be the 9 volts. All right, it's connected up, and I have the power supply set for 9 volts at 500 milliamps, which exactly matches the original Atari power supply. And I'm going to hit the power button to turn on the bench supply. I think this is the power switch right here. All right, I'm getting about 260 milliamps, and the power switch is definitely working. That means this thing is consuming some power. Let me get the monitor hooked up to it. All right, the little Philips TV is hooked up. Okay, so we're getting sound, but we're definitely getting no picture. It's getting random junk when we turn it on, but there's no cartridge installed, of course. So I'm just going to install a cartridge in here. All right, I put Yar's Revenge in there. Let's turn this on. Well, I'm not getting the random junky sound. We're not getting picture either. So a good thing about using a TV like this is I have an RF input. So I have it on channel 3, and I have it plugged into the RCA jack right here. Now, I don't know if the RF modulator has been disabled. Look at that, when I touch it, it gets dark. This thing is off right now. So let me power this on to see what happens. Okay, we're actually getting an image here, but it's not visible. It could be on the wrong channel. Switch this switch here. Is this channel 3-4 switch? That switch doesn't appear to do anything. So let's try channel 4. Nothing. 2. I mean, I certainly see an image right there. That definitely looks like an image. And it should be on channel 2, 3, or 4. I am definitely seeing what looks like text here, though. Let's turn it off and on. Yeah, I see some writing there. It's not super easy, but I'd say that this thing is running. Yeah, I mean, I definitely see something going on, but we're getting no video signal into this thing. So clearly there's a connection that's bad. Something broke somewhere. So I'm going to power off the bench supply, and I'm going to take this thing apart and just take a quick look, see if I can find the fault. Well, I have the console apart, and I'm just going over the connections that someone made installing this mod. I found some installation instructions online. You got to remove a resistor here. You have to remove a transistor off the main board, and then you have to disconnect the RF modulator, so it's no longer getting any power. So any kind of picture I saw on the TV was interference and nothing more. But what I'm seeing here doesn't make any sense. This is the RCA jack that had the RF output, and there are 4 or 5 pins there. There's a black, a red wire, that's the power and ground, and then there's this blue wire, which is the video signal. And looking here, what someone did is they connected the red wire to the pin where the video should be. Now, hopefully that comes across on the camera. And then the purple wire, which is the video wire, it's blue in the photo online there, is connected also to the same pin as this red wire. So this red wire is in the wrong pin, and then this purple wire, and they connected it on the underside to one of these components here, and that is also hooked up to that pin. So the video wire is on the right pin, but the power wire is on the wrong pin. And I'm going to use the solder pult here, clean out the crap that's in these holes here. Actually, that one pretty much cleaned up. Oh, they lifted the trace. Well, unfortunately, whoever was doing this work before messed up that trace. So I am going to cut that off. And I guess I'm going to put this, the purple wire, which was supposed to be there, back onto this pin down there, since that is damaged. And now to reattach this red wire to the correct spot on here. I'm just going to retouch up the black wire as well. And the purple wire is now back where I found it. And I'm just going to double check that the red wire is working. Yep, that's good. I was getting continuity. All right, so power is reconnected. Here's the little thingy. Should be good to go for testing. I need to plug the monitor into here. All right, here we go. What are we going to get? We don't get anything. What happened here? Oh, the power fell off the bottom. All right, that should be good now. Bench power supply on. Here we go. Okay, we saw a flash and the AV went away. Okay, we have a good sign. Let's put in Yar's Revenge again. All right, here we go. Nope. The power switch is fleeky. Oh, and I think I disconnected the power. Yep, came off the bottom again. Okay, here we go. All right, Atari 1981. Look at that. Should we have sound? Oh, I don't have the sound connected. I'm going to turn this off. Actually, here I'm going to plug in my 9-pin D-pad, since this thing is compatible with the Atari. All right, here we go. Turn the power supply on again. Oh, come on. I really need some new clip leads on there. That should be good. Here we go. All right, Atari. Where's the start button? TV type. Color should be up. Difficulty, game reset, game select. Okay. All right, and there we go. Oh. All right, well, don't let my terrible game playing skills give you a bad idea about this. Let's try a game called Freeway. Is Freeway like a Frogger clone or something? Here we go. I think turning it on there, and yes, the power fell off again. All right, this is ridiculous. The clip leads keep falling off. Here we go again. Try that. Power on. There we go. Freeway. Maybe? Maybe. Let's see. How do I start this? Oh, it's like car honking noises. What am I, a bird? Oh, so you can't even move left and right? You can only move up and down? Are you like a kangaroo here? Let's see, if I hit reset, there's different games you can select. Okay, maybe that's one player. No. Wow, look how fast it's going. Oh, I made it at least once. So I'm going to reassemble this thing, and then we can try out these other games. Oh, I almost forgot something as I'm putting this together. Well, these switches were a little crusty. Some time for some Deoxit. So there's these little foam pads on here, which we need to just slide off. And then I can get some Deoxit into these switches. And in the cartridge slot while we're at it, why not? And then we just turn the switch off and on a whole bunch of times. And there we go, we just put the little foam pieces back on, and let me put a cartridge in and out of here a few times. Should make it much easier to plug that in. You know, when people blew in their cartridges, if they had Deoxit, that would have fixed a lot of cartridge problems back in the day. All right, it's all back together. Let's try Freeway one more time. Good, that game is working great. Let's try Yar's Revenge one more quick time. Make sure that still functions. Atari, 1981. And I died and I immediately died. But it's definitely working, so that's a good sign. And the next game is Combat, which I think is a paddle game, which I don't have any paddles. Yes, there it is, the two tanks. So let's see here. Oh, actually, you know what? You can do it with the joystick. Of course, you need two players, and I don't have a second player right here. I gotta say, image quality is a little ghosty. Not great. See, after the tank, there's a little bit of a ghost there. Maybe I need a better transistor. I don't know. 3904, is that an appropriate transistor for this particular application? And the final game is Jungle Hunt. That is not the same as Pitfall, of course. Oh yes, Jungle Hunt. So how do I start this? All right, fire. Look at that parallax scrolling on an Atari. Ah, now I'm swimming. I can go up for air. So these, what, like alligators, crocodiles, eels, whatever these are. Okay, I was running out of air. How do I get past this? Ah, here we go. Ah, you gotta jump over boulders. And I got squashed. All right, there we go. That is one fixed Atari 2600. That was a pretty easy fix. That was entirely installation error by whoever put that composite mod into this thing. Kind of funny that it was done okay, the installation. I mean, not great, but not terrible. And yet, how could something so simple be messed up where this thing wasn't working? So thank you very much to, I don't know your name actually, but the New Retro Show. I'll put a link in the description. You can check out his or her channel, see what this is all about. And yeah, like I said, thanks for sending this Atari in. Okay, we have a package from, this is from Kevin in Garfield, Washington. So somewhere just north of Portland here. Oregon is bordered by Washington on the north side and California on the south side. We're all the three states on the west coast of the US. Well, there's also Alaska, which is up above Canada, and then Hawaii off in the Pacific Ocean. We got a note, I guess. This is like unwrapping a Christmas present. It's rather amusing. Dear Adrian, I, like so many others, really enjoy watching your show. Recently, I was doing my Goodwill shopping and came across a pallet of these Mr. Clean scrubbers. I thought of my favorite segment on your show, which is watching you clean while I listen to some good music. So enclose some of the scrubbers, and I hope you find a good use for them. All right, well, yes, it's Mr. Clean magic erasers, basically. And a pallet indeed is what he found. It looks like we have 6 boxes. Each one has 2 packets, and they were 99 cents each at Goodwill, which is a good price. There it is. It's just a cube. It's a cube of magic eraser. It's got a little bit of a texture on it. No smell. Sometimes they add a little bit of detergent or a soap into it. They kind of inject into it like a Twinkie. It doesn't hurt the cleaning action of these when they have the soap in there. It's definitely not needed. Just a little bit of water is all you need with these sponges. I think they're called melamine sponges or melamine. Anyhow, yes, Kevin, absolutely, I will use these. Thank you very much for sending them in. I really appreciate it. All right, we have a very heavy package, which I actually picked up today, which is the 4th of November when I'm opening these packages. This one comes from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So hi to all my Pittsburgh viewers. A good friend of mine is from Pittsburgh. He doesn't live there anymore. He lives in the Bay Area, but he told me plenty of stories about Pittsburgh. I think it's a similar size city to Portland, Oregon, actually. But of course, it's an old US industrial city. Let's see what's in here. Oh, wow, it's a big old laptop. All right, and there's a letter here. This comes from, oh, I'm going to mispronounce your name. Guillaume? I'm so sorry. I know I'm butchering your name. Anyways, he says, as a fellow retro computer tinkerer, I regularly go to estate sales around Pittsburgh, find some gems from time to time. At one of my last visits, I found this thing for $8. I don't know much about it. I imaged a 720K floppy disk with DOS on it, with my grease weasel, and it works out of the box. There's still lots to test and clean in RetroBrite, but I'm curious about its history and what is even possible to run on such an early 8086. So an 8086 laptop. I have too many projects at the moment and PCs are clearly not my specialty, so I decided to leave it in better hands. Enjoy. And there he has a QR code for his channel, so feel free to scan that if you want to look at his stuff. Well, let's look at this beast. Oh, it's a Zenith. Ah, look at that. Wow, whoa, that's a beastly big computer. Zenith Data Systems. Well, that's a blast from the past. Check that thing out. Of course, one of the things about these old laptops, they're huge, but with that you get a really nice full travel mechanical type keyboard. I mean, I don't know if it's mechanical or rubber dome, but it feels really good. Anyhow, let's take a look at this on the bench. Hello, Zenith Laptop. Let's see, how do I open this thing? There it is. See right off the bat, the LCD is one of those electroluminescent ones, dim, and will have blue writing probably with white background, or vice versa, blue background with white writing. Very hard to read, but that's just how it was back then. Floppy drives that pop up. Oh, this one's got a disk in there. Seems a little odd. There are these holes here. That can't possibly be right. Like something must have been there at one point, right? These do go down and come up. And I did laugh, though. It looks like when you put the disc in, it is pretty funny. So the disc is in there, down, and it ejects it when you put it up. Oh, I see. The drive pops up like that. Okay, so maybe that is normal. I guess that's just the way it is. There's a hole there that just looks a little not so professional. Brightness contrast sliders, as was typical for back then. Keyboard feels pretty nice. Feels like a rubber dome though. It's not mechanical. Interesting ISO style enter key. Deletes over here. Arrows are up there. Sort of unusual. Of all the keys they felt like they had to put there, scroll lock was the one. Yeah, got to put a scroll lock. Numlock is down here, but I'm not initially seeing pause. Pause would have been a much better key to have right there. And instead they put scroll lock, the most useless key after the sysrec key, wherever that is. Is that even on here? Sysrequest or sysrec? I don't even see that on here. Oh, whoops. Okay, pause key is this one right here. It's num lock and pause, and the orange writing on the top indicates maybe you have to push shift to get the num lock or something. Okay, we'll figure that out when I turn this on. On this side of the machine, we have the DC input plus the power switch, which is a physical on-off switch, so it's not a soft power on-off. On the back of the machine, we could flip down this little lid, and we have the usual complement of ports. We have external bus, sort of a high-density connector, external floppy drive, another high-density connector, RGB video, printer, and serial, full-size serial port. And on the other side of the laptop, it looks like we have modem ports that are unpopulated, so there's no modem card inside this thing. Not much going on the bottom of the machine. There are some easy-to-remove screws, so I'm assuming this front section here reveals the battery. And for those of you who are Zenith laptop aficionados, model number ZFL-181-93. DC is 12 volts, tells you that you should use a specific battery pack. Made in Japan. Made in Japan right there, FCC ID. All the best stuff is made in Japan. That's what Dave Jones says, at least. And the little thingies on the lid here, when you push these down, a little grabber pops out, but they are not automatic. So when you close it, it just opens really easily, and you have to manually switch that, and then it is now engaged. All right, for the DC jack here, there's no labeling as for which is negative and which is positive. So I'm going to connect this connector here, and I'm going to run this thing off my bench power supply. But with this connected and the multimeter in continuity mode, I'm going to first check that the black wire on here is the outside of this DC barrel connector, which I think should be ground, and it is indeed. So when I connect this up, so plugging this into the laptop, I'm just going to touch the ground lead. I'm going to touch these connectors here, see if they are ground, and they are not. So let's check this other one. It could be an isolated power supply design. Aha, look at that. So the positive, the red wire, is definitely ground. We're getting basically a little bit over 0 ohms. So this is center negative, this DC barrel jack. That's definitely unusual. Maybe in the early 80s when this thing came out, that was not unusual, but that feels unusual, and hopefully it's got some diode protection to prevent it from blowing up if you plug it in wrong, but that's certainly an easy way to damage things. So here's the power feed that will come from my bench power supply. It's off right now. So I'm going to plug the positive into the black lead, which is the outside of the DC connector, and I'm going to connect the other one like so. And I'm just going to check one final time. I'm going to touch one of the plugs here, the ground lead, and yep, 0.4 ohms, so that is definitely correct. All right, on my bench supply, I'm going to start at 12 volts, but I'll put it down to 1 amp, just a little over 1 amp there. I'll start there. If this thing goes into overcurrent protection, I'll raise that up. And the power supply is on, and there's no current being drawn, and here we go. I'm going to flick the on switch. All right, so we're drawing 500 milliamps right now. And I'm not even seeing any kind of backlight. It does say low power light on here. Let's see here, I gotta fiddle with these controls. Oh, there is a backlight. Disk error, seek failure. I may have to turn off all my lights here so we can even try to see the screen. Okay, there's that. Wow. Yeah, it's dim, and the brightness control on the computer, it's all the way up. Yeah, this is really, really dim. Disk error. So I can adjust the contrast and see that it goes from blue to white. This is one of the problems with electroluminescent screens. It probably was brighter when it was new, I would assume. It couldn't have been this dim. The basement is very dark, and that is so hard to see. So let's try Control-Alt-Delete. So it does actually reboot. Hitting Control-Alt-Delete just says seek failure. Now the drive A light is just solid on. Let's put this disk in here. Close that. I don't know if it needs to be closed or open. I assume those work when they're open. Okay, it made a noise. Oh, wait a second. It seems like it's actually booting. It is booting. And there it is, NEC IOSys MS-DOS 3.3. I mean, wow, this thing is working. I have check it on this disk. It's a 720K, and I'm pretty sure the B drive, yeah, I'm pretty sure this only works when the drive is down. So the disk is in there, it's not even trying to access. And when I put it down, it started spinning. And yes, and And I do. I have check it on here, so I run this. Let's see. We can see a little bit about this machine, what's in here or not. Data error. Oh, the disk's probably dirty. I have my cleaning floppy here. It's time to give these drives a little clean. Sure, that's probably what's going on. Close this. Retry. All right, put the check it disk back in. No, it's not happy reading that disk. All right, let's try this in the A drive. Let me give the A drive a little bit of a clean. I mean, it was working. Oh, this is not able to read this disk either. Now, you may have noticed, just like this disk here, that these are high-density disks, and I've taped over the hole here. Then I use these as 720s. And I know people say that's not ideal, and it's quite possible that these disk drives just don't like reading non-actual 720K disks. I think the magnetic formulation, the bias, is a little bit different, and it's quite possible that that's the case. So I might just get a real 720K, and I will, yeah, let's do that. This just did not seem to work. I'll get a real 720K, and I will copy check it onto that and see if that helps. Okay, so yeah, real 720K disk, copy check it onto it on my other PC, and it's reading it fine. So I actually haven't run into this particular problem before, but I just always heard that this was a real thing, that the disk media does matter, I guess, on some machines. And because these are actual only 720K drives, they're not the high density drives running, reading 720K disks. I guess these just have problems with high density disks being used as double density. There's check it. Wow, that is hard to see. I am trying to give the camera every opportunity to be able to see that properly. It's really difficult. So I have a feeling this is probably like a 640K XT class machine, 8088. Probably running at 4.77 megahertz, maybe at 7 and change. Did say Zenith for the BIOS type there. Yeah, so Zenith 8088 640K, just like I thought. CGA graphics, that's very apparent that this has CGA based on what we see on the LCD. The font to my eyes is very chunky. Just quickly check the benchmarks here. Oh no, running at 8 megahertz. Okay, so this is a little bit of a turbo machine. Yep, so 1.39 times the speed of the original XT, and the math speed, there's no coprocessor, 1.3, a little bit faster. On this disk here, I have a couple games, so let's see if this works. Now, this is a high-density disk. Again, used with tape over it, so it may not work. Let's see how Styx works on this thing. It's gonna be pretty horrible. The screen, okay, yeah, I can't even read it because it's not a real 720K disk. Fascinating. I've never run into this actual problem, but this machine definitely doesn't like it. All right, so I copied a couple of those games onto this check it disk here, since we know this machine has no problem reading that floppy. So let's try Styx once again. And sure enough, it's loading. And we have no picture. So I wonder if this CGA graphics subsystem in this laptop is mediocre at compatibility, because we're not getting anything. Oh, did I just see something there that I cleared too quickly? Fiddle with the contrast. Nothing. I am seeing nothing. And when I push keys, the computer beeps. I assume it's frozen. Let's 3-finger salute. Control-Delete. I absolutely can't get over how hard to read this is. I'm going to run round 42, and actually the U key is not working very well. If I pushed it hard, okay, now it's fine. Obviously, this machine is old, so some of the keys don't respond perfectly. Let's run round 42. It's another game that uses CGA's, oh boy, that is so hard to read. Okay, so like there's text up in the corners here, and only when I adjust the contrast to a certain specific point do you actually see that. If I have it down further, it's just unreadable. Okay, here we go. Let's see how round 42 works. This uses some Okay, yeah, row programming modes of CGA, and clearly that doesn't work on this machine. Oh, it just sounds horrible. Oh no, this is just terrible. And Control Delete doesn't work. Escape at least stop the noise. Okay, I just got to power this off. Yeah, that was horrible. If you want to see how round 42 is supposed to look, let's try it here on the leading edge. Yeah, that's that startup screen, which I couldn't read. So we're going to hit enter to begin. This thing has a CGA subsystem that completely works. So this uses some special tricks in CGA to reprogram the character height, which allows some pseudo graphics. So let's see, how do I fire? Here we go. So this is running in a 16 color mode, and it's actually a text mode game, but it allows sort of pseudo graphics by reprogramming the graphics chip, the 6845 CRTC. It's a pretty fun game, actually. It's sort of like a, what would I say? This is like a Space Invaders type game. And as they get going so fast, oh, come on, and it wiped me out just like that. There we go. All right, so this second level here gives you a little idea of what the graphics look like. But considering this is running on a 4.77 megahertz XT, it's pretty impressive. Because yeah, everyone only knows CGA as having those horrible 4-color graphics, and yet right here you see some 16-color graphics. I think the resolution this is running at is 120 by 100. If I recall, that is the actual resolution. But this game is pretty fun, all things considered, and it's not easy. So there we have it, the Zenith Data Systems XT Laptop. I'm going to leave the boot disk in there just for fun. But yeah, unfortunately, this thing is really let down by the really terrible screen. If the screen were more usable, this would be kind of a fun XT laptop, but unfortunately, that screen is just so hard to read that makes it really difficult and annoying to use this thing. I don't think you could even take this into, say, a Starbucks or a coffee shop and do some WordPerfect word processing on it. The screen is too dim. It will be impossible to read in any kind of a bright environment. It'll be frustrating, and people will think you're sitting there typing it into a laptop that's turned off. Which, if you're trying to be a retro cool hipster, that's not the right look. You need to have at least a screen that looks like it's working, like it's doing something. So thank you very much, I can't pronounce your name, Guillaume? I know I'm saying that wrong. Thank you very much for sending in this Zenith laptop. Okay, we have a little package here, which is officially the last package that I received in October. So after this, I'm actually caught up, but by the time you see this video, it may not be anymore. This one comes from James in Cloverdale, Ohio. Hi to all my Ohio viewers. All right, well, he sent something, maybe it's a PCB, but there's a note. He wrote, "Hi, Adrian, here is a copy of the old Apple service source, I think dated 1997. It looks like it has stuff from the mid-90s back to the SE era. Look it over, lots of service manuals and stuff. Some things might be helpful with your current or future Apple projects. Glad you could use the software I sent earlier, but I forgot about this CD. Enjoy the videos." Oh, yes, Jim. So yes, if I'm remembering right, Jim, you used to work for Apple. So you've retired, but you still have some stuff floating around that could be useful to people like me. And sure enough, this is a burned CD. You wrote Apple's Service Source 2.0 requires Adobe Acrobat. So I'll be really curious to see what is on here. Maybe there's some awesome service manuals, because I gotta say, some of the service manuals and the technical documentation for the old Macs, really bad quality scans are really incomplete. So let's take a look at this stuff on the bench. All right, so I'm on my Windows 10 PC, and for testing out this CD, I'm going to be using the QEMU emulator. And in case anyone didn't know, this can emulate PowerPC Macintoshes just fine. So if you do some Googling, you'll find some guides out there on how to do it. But I went ahead and ripped the CD that Jim sent, mounted that as an ISO in the config file for the QEMU emulator here. And yeah, this runs pretty well, actually. Performance is great for this emulator. It's not super fast. I think the biggest letdown is the graphics update speed, but overall performance is pretty fast. You know, if you have a fast computer, and I'm sure QEMU runs on all types of computers, Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. It's easier than running a real Mac. And of course, I don't need to point my camera at an LCD screen to use an old retro Mac. We can do a screen capture. Sorry about the mouse pointer floating in the middle of the screen. That's just the way my screen cap software does it. I don't see that mouse pointer. I only see the Macintosh one here. And yet I know it's floating around in the middle of the video. So sorry about that. So anyways, here's the Service Source 2.0 CD. And yes, this is a Macintosh CD. So if you stick this into a PC, it comes up, but it just looks blank. So I had a feeling that this would need to be used on something of appropriate era. And I think Jim said that this was from around the time of this particular OS. This OS was from 2001, and I think this CD was also from there, or maybe the very late 90s. From my understanding, this CD was sent out to all the dealers. So unfortunately, what it doesn't have, and we'll go to service manuals here. So there are a lot of service manuals here for all of the different Macintoshes. And this goes all the way back to the original Macs. I think like there's Mac SE, SE30. But the issue is Apple never released schematics for this stuff. So if I open this, I have Acrobat installed on here. Apple, like I said, they never released any schematics. It gives you very specific information about these, floppy drive, just stuff like that. It even talks about the sound chip, 4-voice sound chip, 22 kilohertz sampling rate. It goes into all the various parts that you might find on the Macintosh. So Apple logo. And I suppose if I make this bigger here, I think this should have a part number. So there's the part number, 6510543, and that would be to order the logo for the front of the computer. And, all the various components that make up the machine. Look, the original soldered battery. There are two types. Some of the Mac SEs had a battery holder, front bezel, cables, everything. Even like the circuit boards themselves, like the hard drives, here's some of the chips. Doesn't have a picture, but what? That's so strange. That is not the Swim chip. That is definitely a CRT. So that's not particularly precise. Here's something called a PC interface card. If we zoom in on this, it's pretty low resolution. Let's see, how do I zoom out? Shift, here we go. I wonder if this let you access PC disk drives on the Mac SE. See, and unfortunately, it doesn't really have any technical information about it either, right? It just shows you the card, and right here has the Apple part number. So if we wanted to be ordering it, we could do that. There's the original power cord, even has all the screws, which could be useful actually if you're looking to order some of these new screws and you want to know the exact type. There it is. It's in this documentation. Anyhow, we go to exploded view, and there's the actual, all the parts inside the Mac SE. But that's it. There is no schematics in here, nothing. There's information on how to do adjustments. So if you need to do tilt, centering adjustments, brightness, size, focus, helpful information. It's definitely not bad. Oh, here's how you take the computer apart. It walks through every particular step you need to do for doing all that. I think it even shows you how to discharge the CRT, right? So this is just for the Mac SE. So let's close out of that and look at the Mac 2 SI, a machine I recently worked on. It's going to be very similar again, like I said. So here are all the various parts. Looks like the same clip art things. Rubber foot, package of 20. I guess dealers would order a lot because those potentially got lost a lot. Here's the exploded view of the entire machine. It talks about how to install the new bus adapter card or the PDS cards, how to take the thing apart. I mean, again, definitely useful information. Oh, there's a whole troubleshooting section as well. So, if you have a video problem. But notice here, it's like replace logic board, replace power supply. There's definitely nothing in here about repairing, because even back at this point, Apple didn't have their dealers doing circuit level repairs. It's just like it is today. Apple wanted them to swap entire parts, like the entire motherboard, the entire power supply, and then they had to send that part back into Apple. Apple would repair it themselves, but that was done all internally or by third parties that they contracted with Apple, where Apple gave them the information. But by the way, this looks like the Apple disk drive, PC disk drive. So this is probably what went with that. Oh yeah, look, 250 kilobits per second, so double density. This must have gone with that card on the Mac SE. that allowed it to read and write PC discs, I guess, 3.5 inch, or I'm sorry, 5.25 inch discs. That's interesting. I don't think I even knew about this thing. There's the card for the Mac 2, and then there's the SE one. So yeah, I guess both those computers had a way to officially read 360K discs. But yes, as I was saying, Apple didn't have their dealers doing this type of repair. So the documentation just doesn't exist. Well, it was never released to the public. It definitely did exist. People were doing repair level work on this stuff, but it just, never got out to the public, I guess. And that means that right now, when we're trying to repair stuff, it's just extra hard because you're having to reverse engineer how things work. Oh, it's not easy. Here is one called the system/CPU chart. So I assume, oh, okay. So that's kind of nice. It shows you exactly which versions of things run on what Macs. So the original 128 through the XL only could use System 3.2, and that was the last version. But like the Mac 2 Ci, for instance, it can actually run System 6, which is kind of nice because System 6 is very fast. System 7 is when they started kind of adding bloat to the OS and started really slowing it down. Let's take a look at this document here, which is called Troubleshooting Flowcharts for Desktop Computers. So here it is. Turn on system disk. I mean, I think this stuff is probably super rudimentary. Yeah, replace the bad memory on logic board. Replace the logic board. I mean, that was it. Even back then, this is still what Apple does today. You take it to the Apple store, your computer, your phone. They're like, oh, it's not working, so new logic board. Like it could be the simplest fix if you watch Louis Rossman's channel, but they're like, replace logic board. And I mean, I get it. For quick repairs, that's the quickest. But if your machine's out of warranty, that's really expensive. So thanks very much, Jim, for sending this in. I was really hoping, I mean, I had a feeling this was going to be what this is, but I thought maybe there would be some schematics on here, but that doesn't appear to be the case. So that's too bad, because that would be amazing if, like, this for the community, if we ended up finding the schematics for especially the older machines. But things like the LC575, stuff like that, they just don't exist. There are no schematics for that. No one's ever made them. And therefore, doing board level repair on that, when you have battery damage or capacitor damage, it's tough. It's really tough. So if anyone sees stuff on here that is not out there on the internet, please let me know, and I can look to get this uploaded somewhere for other people to access. All right, we have a package here. This one comes from Jonard in the Netherlands. Hi to all my Dutch viewers. If I look at the breakdown of where I've received mail call packages from, considering that the Netherlands is a pretty small country, I've certainly received a good number of things from there. So that's pretty cool. We have a note. All right, let's see what the note says. The note says, as promised, here's the Intel 8287 5 megahertz FPU. I'm not sure if the chip still works, hasn't been used in over 3 decades. So be sure to test it diligently before it accidentally fries your IBM PC. I can remember we used it in our first IBM PC for games like SimCity and Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it gave about a 50% performance increase. My father worked for IBM for over 30 years, so we always had the newest hardware and fun stuff at home. There's also some candy included in the box. It's famous Dutch licorice based on the bay leaf. It's my favorite, and I hope you like it. Fun fact, my last name is Mulder, M-U-L-D-E-R, and that means Miller in Old Dutch. Take a good look at the licorice. It's in the shape of an old Dutch traditional mill. During weekends, I do operate a 300-year-old mill as a voluntary miller to maintain and preserve it. Just like you're taking care of old technology. Wow, that is so cool. And there's a picture of Jonard with his father and his brother gaming on what looks like an old IBM 5150 or 5160. As I think I mentioned before on the mail call, I don't generally love black licorice flavor. So we'll see how this is. Oh, what a neat box. So you tore it open and there's still a little bit of a seal on the top there. Now, I think I have mentioned on the channel before that I've been to the Netherlands before. I took a trip to Amsterdam, and of course, I took the opportunity to take the train out past Rotterdam and then take a bus out to see some of the old mills. And I went to Kinderdijk, and it was a fantastic day. Beautiful weather. And there was a special day going on where they had the mills open for tours, so you could go inside. And when I was there, I spoke to this older gentleman who actually, his family was operating the mill, and he was born and raised inside the mill. and you could go inside and see it. And it's this incredible thing. People lived in these mills, and there's all this machinery running, you know, it's all wooden and old. And there's the kitchen and the bathroom and the place for everyone to sleep and these little nooks and crannies. It's just amazing. Some of my Dutch viewers can chime in, but I'm pretty sure that the mills really played a pivotal role in controlling the water that is potentially always ready to flood the Netherlands, because the Netherlands is below sea level, and you need these mills to help pump water out of these low-lying areas, stuff like that. So fantastic trip and a fantastic time seeing those mills and getting to meet people who actually worked inside the mills, just like Gerard. So sure enough, the licorice are in the shape of the mills, and I'm worried. They have a really nice kind of brown color to them. Let's see how these taste. I probably should have bit this off and not eaten the whole piece. It's very chewy and very sticky, so there's a bunch stuck on my teeth right now. Yeah, these are pretty tasty actually, and I have to say, I think as I get older, I might be acquiring a little bit of a taste for these licorice candies, maybe. I'm undecided on that yet. Anyhow, Gerard, thank you very much for sending those in. Let's take a look at this processor on the bench. I don't have a lot of 286 machines, but this is my IBM 5170, so this is a 286. Although you may notice by the BIOS screen here that this is actually running an AMI BIOS. This is not an original motherboard in here. When I got this computer, found it locally a couple years ago, maybe it was more than that actually, it had a 386SX in it. Someone had upgraded at some point, had battery damage. At some point the computer must have been dropped or damaged somehow, because there's a hole in the front of the faceplate and a bunch of the standoffs were broken. So I had to glue those back together and bash the metal part of the case back into shape. It was all sort of warped and messed up. And one thing interesting about the motherboard that's in here is it actually supports 4 megabytes right on the motherboard itself using higher density chips than the regular 1 meg that you get on a 286. And so I have a full 4 megs in here, and this thing runs actually at 16 megahertz. But you'll notice here that keyboard error, I guess the keyboard's unplugged from the back for some reason, but the CMOS checksum is also bad, specifically because I had removed the old leaky battery and just put it in a CR2032, but it really doesn't seem to last very long for some reason. I mean, I'm talking in there, you get a few months out of it before it's drained entirely, and then the computer goes back to this particular problem. I want to put this 287 in here, but this does say 5 megahertz on the part, and I'm almost positive this is a 12 megahertz motherboard and chip that's running in here. In fact, I think the RAM is even running at 0 wait state. So overall, this is a pretty fast 286. So I guess I need to take this thing down and see about putting that chip in here. Unfortunately, there's speakers on here, wires, it's lots of stuff connected. It's a bit of a pain in the butt to take this down, but I gotta fix the battery anyways, so may as well do it. Move this ridiculously heavy Sony Multiscan E200 monitor off of here. Inside the 5150, it's relatively full in here. There's quite a lot of stuff I have jammed into this thing. From an ISA expansion card perspective, there's the multi-IO serial parallel kind of thing, IDE, floppy controller. There's a network card. There's a video card, which I think is a ATI All-in-Wonder, or if it's not, it's a clone of some kind that's very similar. This is a Sound Blaster 1.5, which has the CMS chips installed on it. And then I have a modem for whatever reason. And this is an IDE cable that goes over here to a slot-mounted SD card reader. So I can switch out SD cards very easy. This is not using compact flash, but it's SD. I think this is the original IBM power supply. Is that really the last week of December 1984 when this thing was made? And there is the CR2032 battery holder. It's just stuck on the back of the case where the original battery would have sat. It was a big alkaline pack that was on here. And like I said, this thing does work, but it just dies very quickly. I guess this motherboard expects 4.5 volts from an alkaline pack. And when the CR2032 gets down to like 2.5, it just becomes unhappy, whatever clock chip this thing is using. All right, I hooked up this LCD monitor, and I'm going to try to get this computer booting again so I can run some performance tests on it before I install the Mathco processor. Yes, I forgot I was working on this DOS menu. Look at the date here, 1/1/120. That doesn't work super well. All right, I'm gonna run landmark speed test. I know people hate this, but this will give us an indicator of what's going on with this machine. Yes, like I thought, 12.5 megahertz, but the effective speed is around 19 megahertz, and that's because of the 0 wait state RAM that's on here. I think I have 80 nanosecond RAM installed on this motherboard. So this runs really quick. But FPU, we have NA. And if we look at check it, let's do main system benchmarks. So we got 3157 dry stones, 12.5 megahertz. And the math speed, we got 62K wet stones, no FPU. So this is a close-up of that 287 chip. Let's see if this thing works in this computer and at this speed. Oh, so I was going to straighten the pins out in this pin straightener. I just noticed there's a missing pin. It's not the end of the world. I'll just have to solder a new pin onto there. The rest are there. Just that one is missing. It's not ideal, but I have new pins on there. They're a little shorter than the originals. I'm sure there's a better part that I could have had to fix this, but I just ripped some pins off a dead chip. And oh yeah, there's 2 bad pins on here. The other one was just hanging on with such a thread I touched it, fell right off. So we'll see if this thing can work. There it is. There's the chip. It's installed in the socket. Well, let's see what happens. Okay, well, the chip does seem to be working here. It shows 310,000 whetstones. We were getting 62,000 before in this test. 47 times faster than a regular PCXT. Now, I don't really have any programs that can use this other than these benchmarks. In the landmark speed test, that was weird. Not sure what's going on there. Shows 8 megahertz, so I guess I'm overclocking this because it was a 5 megahertz part. I don't know what NAM means. That's weird. And I was just touching the Mathco processor and it's really hot and the computer froze. So I suppose that I was overclocking this thing. He had written on the box 5 megahertz part. Let me just do a quick Google to see what this actually is. And yes, this post here says, if I recall correctly, the 8287 ran at 2/3 the bus speed. So an 8287-3 ran at 5 megahertz, which allowed to be paired with an 8 megahertz 8287. And this is definitely a -3 part. So I guess, yeah, it was going a little bit too fast for what this particular computer here is running it at. So I was looking through my bag of CPU and other parts, and I actually found an 8287-XL in there. So I just stuck that in this computer. I'm not sure what the XL is good for, how different it is, but maybe it can run at the 8.5 megahertz or so that this machine needs it to. And yep, look at that. The XL is running at 18 megahertz according to Landmark. This other -5 was running at 8, which was a serious overclock. And here is check it, the XL chip. It's running pretty quick, 526,000 whetstones, almost 80 times the IBM PCXT performance. So thanks, Jonard, for setting this in along with Candy. It's too bad I can't use it in this machine, but that's okay. I've found another chip that works. I do have another 286 board that's slower. This should work in. Or one day, if I end up with the original motherboard for this particular machine, then I can use this chip in here. One day I hope to get the matching IBM motherboard to put back into this, restore this thing back to its original glory. But until then, I will be storing this in my box of CPU parts for future use. Well, that's going to be it for this video. I want to end this by saying Happy New Year to all my viewers. And let's look to a much better 2021, where the human malware starts to be held at bay and knocked out so that we can start to have a life that's a little bit back to normal again. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If not, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button to subscribe to my channel and the little bell icon for notifications. It really helps out the channel when you do that. And of course, put your comments and your suggestions in the comment section below. I really appreciate it when you do that. And that's going to be it. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you in the new year. Goodbye.